Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. First call, what the Steelers are worth versus other NFL teams, lots of ex-Penguins on new teams. Tuesday's first call compares the value of the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the rest of the NFL. We also preview the upcoming Pirates-Cardinals series, recap some team hopping from a bunch of ex-Penguins, and get news about a Robert Morris hockey player who is getting a look from one of the NHL's clubs out west. Big bucks, the Steelers are right in the middle of the NFL when it comes to franchise revenue. They came in 15th of 32 teams at $548 million last year. That's according to Forbes.com via data compiled by J.P. Morgan Asset Management. In terms of franchise worth, the Steelers are in a four-way tie for 17th with the Green Bay Packers, and the AFC North rival Cleveland Browns and Baltimore Ravens at $4.6 billion. The Dallas Cowboys generated $1.1 billion in revenue, the most in the NFL, outpacing the second highest team, the Las Vegas Raiders, by $411 million. Dallas is the most valuable sports franchise in the world at $9 billion. Exactly how much of a financial behemoth is the NFL? Well, consider that the Detroit Lions were the last-place team in 2022-23 revenue at $495 million. That was still more revenue than the Los Angeles Lakers and practically every other NBA, NHL, and MLB team, according to Forbes.com. Redbird rivalry when the Pirates open up their three-game series with the St. Louis Cardinals on Tuesday at PNC Park. They'll do so 3 games behind the Redbirds for second place in the National League Central. The Pirates begin play at 40-43, a game and a half in front of Cincinnati, 39-45, for third in the division. The Cardinals are 43-40, 6 behind the division-leading Milwaukee Brewers. The Cards also hold the final wild-card spot in the NL, a half game behind the San Diego Padres for the second slot and a game and a half in front of the New York Mets and 2 games ahead of the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Pirates and Giants are 3 back. The Buccos dropped 2 of 3 in St. Louis last month, scoring just 7 runs along the way. The Cards have won 7 of their past 10 games. Mitch Keller, 9-4, 3.20 ERA, pitches the opener for the Pirates. The right-hander's only loss since April 30th was a 4-3 defeat in St. Louis on June 13th. He'll be opposed by Kyle Gibson, 5-3, 3.70. The 20 best running backs in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Throughout NFL history, it's been hard for teams to find success without a dominant rushing attack. Over the years, the Pittsburgh Steelers have been graced with running backs who offered longevity and stability at the position and have been staples to their offense. Some of these running backs quickly come to mind as they played pivotal roles in Pittsburgh's Super Bowl runs. Other RBs in the team's storied history had remarkable seasons, but their careers were short-lived. There has been no shortage of workhorse backs over the years, and several of these bruisers challenged the notion that a running back is only as good as the offensive line in front of him. Many factors go into comprising a list of the best running backs in Steelers history. Statistics are weighed heavily in determining the order of the list. Players who stacked dominant seasons and were considered among the best in the league during their prime were taken into account. Likewise, longevity is important. How long a running back was able to stay at the peak of his game was factored into these rankings. I also considered how much running backs did for their team and how far they helped the franchise go into the postseason. The difference in eras played a pivotal factor in ranking criteria as well. Some statistical grace was given to Steelers running backs who played in an era where passing games couldn't do enough to take defenders out of the box and when the rules of the game favored the defense. To qualify for a ranking, a player must have been on the Steelers roster for a minimum of 1 full season and they must have carried that football at least 100 times in Pittsburgh. I also made an exception for players listed as fullbacks but who ran the ball frequently. This list is subject to change. As some players look to cement their names in the history books alongside the greatest running backs in Pittsburgh Steelers history, they will have a chance to climb further up the list as their careers continue. DeAngelo Williams had a remarkable 9-year career with the Carolina Panthers before coming to Pittsburgh. For the Steelers, Williams was a one-year wonder, but that one season was extremely impressive. At 32 years old in his 10th NFL season in 2015, Williams carried the football 200 times for 907 yards and 11 touchdowns. However, it was his receiving ability that made him a threat. Williams caught 40 of 47 passes for 9.2 yards per reception. This equated to over 1,274 scrimmage yards. What's most impressive is that the veteran running back did nearly all of this damage after Le'Veon Bell was suspended for the first 2 games of the year and after Bell went down with a season-ending injury in Week 8. Williams played one more season in Pittsburgh before hanging up his cleats. Ernest Jackson played in the NFL before the league moved to a 7-round NFL draft. He can be thankful that he did. The former 8th-round draft choice was drafted by San Diego in 1983 and earned Pro Bowl honors in his second season when he recorded 1,179 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. After a brief stint in Philadelphia in '85, Jackson made his way to Pittsburgh where he earned Pro Bowl honors for the second time. In 13 games in 1986, Jackson rushed for 910 yards and 5 touchdowns while pitching in 169 receiving yards. He followed this season up with a 696-yard performance in 12 games in '87. Jackson joined the Steelers during a forgettable era in the late '80s, and he didn't receive much help from his supporting cast. Somehow he managed to churn out 4.1 yards per carry during his time in Pittsburgh. Former Steeler recruits Brandon Aiyuk to Pittsburgh. Former Pittsburgh Steelers safety and current ESPN NFL analyst Ryan Clark was attempting to recruit San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk to the Pittsburgh Steelers when he had him on as a guest for his podcast, The Pivot. Aiyuk is currently in a contract dispute with the San Francisco 49ers. He discussed teams he could see himself in 2024 if he were to leave San Francisco. Aiyuk named Clark's former team the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington Commanders. After Aiyuk named the Steelers as a team he could see himself on, Clark, visibly excited about the potential for the Steelers, began pitching the team to the star wide receiver to pair himself with George Pickens. "They ain't got nobody but George Pickens, we got 2 new quarterbacks, we got a new offensive coordinator, I mean, you don't want to go to Washington anyway." Clark said, "In Pittsburgh, you'll be a god." Clark makes a great point that the Steelers have a completely revamped offense, and the offense could quickly revolve around Aiyuk. Pittsburgh is almost the opposite of the scenario Aiyuk sees himself in San Francisco, as they have so many stars that he cannot get the ball as much as he wants and be the leader he desires to be. Clark continued to hype up the young Steelers offense during his pitches. "If Brandon goes to Pittsburgh, you've got George Pickens, B.A. Wright, Najee Harris, and Jaylen Warren in the backfield, Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, nothing but dogs up front." Aiyuk seemingly agreed with Clark's comments, but was clear that he still sees himself most likely playing for the 49ers next season. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Brandon Aiyuk? Leave your opinion in the comments.